Right, get ready to have your mind boggled. This is one of the deepest ones, one of the deepest videos we've done on here, and I'm really looking forward to the comments. This series just gets bigger and bigger, and we will be getting to the British migrations. This does all tie in, alright? And you'll notice in this video, you won't hear much of my voice, because most of the time my jaw is hanging down, dropping, as I'm just getting blown away by what Luke shows. There's a little bit of numbers at the beginning. Don't let it put you off though, alright? Just go through. If you don't quite get all of it, it'll become apparent as you move through towards the end. And whatever you do, watch the last 10 minutes. Even if you skip a bit, you've got to watch the last 10 minutes. My guess is you won't want to skip any. When I finished my chat with Luke, and it's about an hour and 10 minutes, I almost immediately went back and watched the whole thing again. Because to take it all in, and it covers some fundamental very important parts of all our lives. Now, we are going to have a live question and answer session with Luke in the next couple of weeks. So if you remember to subscribe and hit the notifications button, you'll find out when that's going to be. I'll try and give plenty of notice. I'll even try and do a trailer video. So I know there's loads of people who got loads of questions for Luke. The feedback's been fantastic. And we're just on the little introduction bit. There's all this to go yet. So it's well worth the effort, all right? You will have to think a bit, but it's worth the effort. Stick it through, all right? I look forward to the comments, and see you on the inside. Hello, and welcome back. I'm delighted to say we've got Luke with us again, unveiling more of the real messages, partly what's in the Bible, the things through translation we're not seeing, and then where we can go with this. And it's fascinating. So get yourself a cup of tea or something, get your thinking heads on, and we'll get ready for this one. Over to you, Lou. Hi, Luke. Luke.
Who's Lou?
Who's Lou? Yeah, sorry about that. That's a good start, isn't it? Yeah.
There's one of your other men, is it?
Very good. Very good.
Okay. Cheers, Ross. So this isn't about the Book of Revelations, by the way. This is just part one of a series. And in this presentation, I'm going to be covering Yahweh Ether and Yahweh Earth and the Fibonacci time codes. I've got a presentation like this at the moment because there's a video coming up, so you have to bear with me. Okay. So these are the references that I've used if anybody's interested. Obviously you can go back and pause this and find out where I've got all my information from with regard to this presentation. I would say probably one of the most interesting books that I use is Strong's Bible Concordance, and that is a little bit like the Black's Law Dictionary, where you get a load of information about what the words actually mean in the Bible from their Hebrew and Greek origins. Although I'm sure people will have lots to say about the origins of the Greek and Hebrew words. Okay, so basically what I'm going to be covering today is the secret world of the Kabbalah. And as you can see there, it's got that word in there, the Kabbalah. And the Kabbalah is all to do with Jewish mysticism. It's one part of Jewish thought with regards to how the universe and how God and the mind of God is basically structured and made up. And yeah, this is something that Madonna's into, I think, isn't it?
That's the one. Yeah, I was just going to check. It's the same Kabbalah, yeah. Yeah, it's become quite trendy with a lot of Hollywood celebs lately, isn't it? Well, not say lately. I mean, the last 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I would certainly say this is the secret religion, or the secret following that's going on in the background. So one of the books that I was looking at was the Secret Book of John, and that's part of the Gnostic Gospels, or the Nag Hammadi Library. There you are.
Yeah.
And
yeah, thanks. I've got to say quickly, thanks for putting me onto those. They are. I've had these Gnostic Bibles. You laugh when I say Gnostic, don't you? Say Gnostic.
Gnostic, yeah.
I like to pronounce the G, so I remember it's there then when I'm spelling it. But I've had these for ages, and I kind of browsed through, and I found them you know, a little bit impenetrable. It's like reading some obscure Old Testament text, which is kind of what they are, really, isn't it? But that secret book of John is absolutely mind-blowing and well worth reading.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting book because it covers, especially the first part of the book, it covers basically the attributes of God's mind, or how God's mind is structured, and how it comes about and how it comes into existence. And it's got very, very close ties with this myth of Narcissus. And this is where we actually get the term narcissistic personality from. And it's interesting that this myth is actually up there with the gods.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
And in the mind of God. Basically, the story of Narcissus is that he resisted all of the romantic advances from everyone, and basically spent his whole lifetime staring at his own reflection in a pool of water. Basically fell in love with himself. And that's the story that you hear in the secret book of John at the very, very beginning. And it tells a story about how the mind of God basically became a split personality, which is all to do with the ego and its association with narcissists. Yeah, you got a question, Ross?
Just a quick one. It's the same story that ends up in the Greek mythologies as well, then, with Narcissus.
Yeah, this is on the right hand side. This is Narcissus here.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's the same story, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a retelling. So it's just a different culture, and it's just a different way of telling an older tale that's always been there. But interestingly, the fascinating bit for me is that with the secret book of John, it actually takes you right the way back to the very, very beginning in terms of how this mind of God formed from this one thing that was undivided. But you really do have to go and read this. So I'm not going to say too much about it because I could talk for hours on this book itself. So let me play that through. There we go. So I can pause that. So as we can see up here, this is what I'm calling the Yahweh Ether. And you might well recognize these symbols. This is the pentagram, which is symbolic of Baphomet and the old devil worshipping. You know, you've got these symbolic horns here, and then you've got this regular star here. So what these represent is the feminine and the masculine energies. And what we've got here is this pentagram vortex is actually a representation of what's going on here at the center of the vortex. Okay. I'm not going to go into too much detail about all the numbers on this side because this is going to be for another presentation that goes a little bit deeper than what we're actually going to go to today. But what I will say is that the numbers on this diagram correspond with the numbers of the Fibonacci sequence. And we'll go into that in a few slides' time. But the purpose of this was to actually show you that this is a twin vortex or twin field, which represents basically the universe or the universal womb. So this would be the universal mother and this would be the universal father. So in Gnostic terms, in the secret book of John, this pair would be the prime parent, okay, which came about from identifying either as a masculine or as a feminine aspect, which then goes back to relating to the story of Narcissus. You following on that?
Yep, yep.
So if I play this animation, you can see what it becomes. So it's basically a twin vortex. Okay, so this is a 3D representation of this two-dimensional diagram. So we've got as above and so below. Yeah, so this would be representing the feminine part of the mind, and this would be the masculine part of the mind. So if we were going to number them, this would be the number 9, and this would be the 0 point. So let me just play that through so you can get a good, proper another look at that. Starts off as the pentad, so we're looking down into the eye of the vortex, and then as we come on a side-on view, we can actually see that it's reciprocating fields of energy. And this energy is described over here in this chart. And what we can see here is the fundamental frequency orders. Just move my thing out of the way. So over here is the fundamental frequency orders. And you note that it starts at 144 hertz. Well, that's got the similarity
number again, yeah, that number
yeah,
again.
the 144,000 saints. Was it 144,000 saints that were taken
Jehovah's Witnesses, I think, isn't it? 144,000.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And you can see that this is actually a fundamental frequency. And on this diagram over here, going back to the pentagrams, each of these angles is made up by 144 degrees. So this pentagram is basically following this pattern as it gets higher and higher. So we're starting off at a low frequency, and then it gradually gets higher and higher and higher and higher and more complex as it goes up through the orders. So now if I play this graphic over here,
to answer the Earth and Venus around the Earth and Venus around the sun. Okay. What those exocets? What do they call them?
So this is the pattern that Venus and the Earth make when they go around the sun every 8 years.
Wow.
And you can see there, look, you've got the same pentad that is visible in here, and
amazing,
obviously in this graphic as well, right there. So all of these correspond with one another in terms of the way that the energy and the emotions are going. And like I said, this represents the feminine and the masculine universe, or at least that's what the Gnostics were saying. So looking at that one half of that vortex, we've got the divine feminine, or the feminine. And as you can see, the feminine is the highest number because it's the number 9. It's got the 9 in it. And the symbol of the yin yang actually shows that as well. We've got the 9 in there, and we've got the 6 going in there as well. So you've got the 6 and the 9. So symbolically, this represents a cell, doesn't it? It's a circle. It's a sphere, if you want to call it a 3-dimensional sphere. Yeah. And this has been divided in the middle and has become a duality.
I never thought of it as 2 numbers before, yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you that in the next slide, how this all fits in as well, as being the highest in the number system that we've got. From the Gnostic Gospels, one of the stories in there, one of the themes in there, is about a fall of a wisdom goddess called Sophia. And she basically falls from the pleroma and creates a fiery substance or a fiery thing called Yahweh, who turns out to be the demiurge for the Christian Bible, as I'll show in a moment. And this symbol actually reflects that fall. So she's falling from the highest point of the 9 and dropping down 180 degrees and turning into this fiery white aspect. Now, as part of the story of this fall, Sophia actually gives Yaldabaoth a bit of her energy. So from exchanging a bit of her energy for his energy, this is where we get this yin-yang symbol. So this is why we have a feminized male. Okay, it's a feminized male aspect because this is the feminine energy within the male aspect. So it's a feminized male. So we've got the feminine and a feminized male. That makes sense? Okay.
Absolutely not. I just never looked at it like that before. It's amazing. You look at these symbols, you got to really look at things, haven't you? It's a good lesson for all things.
Yeah, and I'm sure people will come up with other ideas for what this means as well, in terms of cellular structure as well. But with the fall, that theme of the fall, I mean, what did Lucifer do? That was part of the story, wasn't it? From his fall from heaven.
That's right.
From perfection, and he fell down. And he was the light bringer. Well, what's this if this isn't light?
Yeah.
So anyway, let's move on to the next slide. So this isn't as complicated as what it looks. So we were just looking at the 0 and the 9, and I'm saying that they are a base pair. And the reason I'm saying they're a base pair is because they're almost indistinguishable in terms of their arithmetic processes. So these are the things that can be done with the numbers. And this 0 represents the masculine energy. Now, I'm not saying that's the male energy or part of the female energy. I'm saying that this is masculine, which is a completely different thing to the male, because the male comes from the feminized male. Okay, so this 0 represents the masculine, and when we go through the processes of adding, multiplying, subtracting and dividing, what happens is it returns the same thing each time. Nothing happens, yeah? Nothing changes.
So can you explain how 9 plus 2 is 2 and 9 plus 3 equals 3?
Yeah, I'll go for the 9 bits because the 9 is slightly different. And where I'm saying that they are identical twins or near identical twins is that 0 plus 1 equals 1. The 1 stays the same, doesn't it? Well, 9 plus 1 equals 10. But when you round that down to its only digit, it becomes 1 when you take away the 0. Okay, so the same there, the 0 plus 2, it remains as a 2. So the 9 plus 2 equals 11. But when you add 1 and 1 together, that becomes 2.
Right.
Okay?
This is the key. It's adding together digits, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the key.
If I went 4 plus 4 plus 4, I get 12. But I don't call it 12. I take the 1 and the 2 and add it together, it gets 3. So
yeah.
4 will have a base number of 3, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you can call it 12.
9 plus 1 is 10. If you add together the 1 and the 0, it's still 1.
Yeah.
9 plus 2 is 11. Add together the 1 and the 1, we get a 2. 9 plus 3 is 12. So add the 1 and the 2, we get 3. Right,
3.
okay, right, okay. So
yeah.
this is base thing. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we're using the base numbers, so we're going to find out the root numbers. And when we do that, we can actually see that the 0 and the 9 are operating exactly the same. Yeah, this is crucial because it's showing that they're actually twins at a digital root level. When they're functioning in a different way together, like you were saying, as 11, 12 or 13, they're coming back at different values, but we're looking at the actual root values to show that the underlying pattern, they are the same things going on. And it's the same thing with the multiplication. With the multiplication, 9 times 2 is 18, but when you add the 1 plus 8 together, it equals 9.
Yes.
So we see the same pattern going through the multiplication. So they're twins in multiplication. Interestingly, with the subtraction, they throw back mirrors. And what we learn from this is which pairs are what, or go with what. Yeah.
How would you mean what goes in? Yeah, it's a bit more about.
So we've got the minus aspect. It repeats itself, and then on the 9 subtraction aspect, it does a reversal. So it's doing one way, and then it's doing the other way. But if we look at these numbers together, we've got 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, and 81. Well, that's the 9 times table. Coded into that.
Yeah, very clever. Yeah.
Element. Okay. So we've got the same, but we've got a reversal. So for this one aspect, the subtraction is working slightly different. This is why I'm saying they're near identical twins. They're not identical, but they're near identical twins. And then the most interesting part for me is this division aspect, because this is where the action really starts to happen. Obviously, we can't divide the 0, because you can't divide something that is infinite or has no boundaries. But with the 9, you can see for yourself, look, with all the different aspects of division, it brings back all these different values. And this is where I think the complexity of the universe starts to take shape, when we get this aspect of things being able to be divided. Okay, I'm sure there's going to be people out there that have got different views about that. But this is coming at it from a real basic, taking it back to the roots of basic arithmetic. We're not getting into any fancy numbers. We're just talking about adding things together and subtracting things and taking things away. The 4 basic processes. So, the 4 directions, if you like, or the 4 pillars. You'll know that verse, won't you?
Absolutely. I think we all know that one. We should do.
So, what is a word? What is a spoken word? It's a sound, isn't it? So we can replace that and say in the beginning was sound, and the sound was with God, and the sound was God. And what I've done is I've shown how the 0 and 9 in the last slide are a base pair. And what happens with this musical scale, we can actually see that the 1 and 8 are also a pair. And this is basically representative of an octave, isn't it? So it goes through this scale, and then it goes up to the next scale. And this is what I think our number system actually encodes. So if we look at this across Eros, this is our normal number system. I've only done up to 27, just to show that there's 3 different loops in there. But working on this, adding all the numbers together for it to become a digital root, we can actually see that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then it just repeats, and then it just repeats. So underneath our base 10 number system, we have this hidden code functioning, and this is the root code.
So sorry, you just, that's why I have to ask a question when you say about repeating them, because so ignoring the 20s and the 30s and that kind of thing, you're just saying that the numeral repeats. Is that the point here? I'm trying to make a repeats. I mean,
so we've got basically a linear number climb here.
Yes, that's again. Yes.
Yeah, which is where the numbers are fragmenting or getting more complex. But actually, even as they get more complex, because these numbers can go on infinitely, can't they? And they can get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh, well, you've reduced them to their base number then.
Yeah.
So the 2 and the 1.
It doesn't matter how big they get. Yeah, they could get 20 numbers long. Just one number could be 20 numbers long. But when you add all those numbers together, they're ultimately going to be 1 of 8 or 9. Yeah, 1 of 9.
Yeah, so I'm with you now. Yes, thank you.
And this is the pattern that goes on underneath so we've got this linear number system that climbs off into infinity, but underneath it's spiraling, or it's like a helical, however you want to pronounce it. So if you add these numbers together as well, Ross, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8, that equals 36. Well, 36 is the digital root of a circle, 360. So our base 10 number system is basically encoding a circle in the numbers 1 to 8. Okay.
Right. Okay.
3 plus 6 equals 9 as well. So we're knowing that it's encoding the 9 as well. So does this make sense to you? Got any questions on this?
No, keep going. Yeah, with it now. Yeah.
Can you see how this scale fits in with the numbers, and that the numbers actually can be allocated as musical scales? So when we go up an octave, this would be the first scale, and then this would be the second octave, and then this would be the third octave. Does that make sense? Because we're going up 8 notes each time, which is the octave, isn't it?
Right, I see now. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's our octave. And then the 9 is like a marker to say we're going up an octave.
Yeah.
And then we're another octave of 8.
And then we're into the next octave here.
Yep.
And then we're into the next octave here. And with each octave, we're getting more and more complex. And that's what I was trying to show on those vortexes as well. As we climb up into that pentad, in that vortex, the numbers were getting more complex as we were getting higher. Okay, it's crucial here because the numbers are linked to the music, are linked to sound. Okay, you know that verse?
It's the tree of life.
Yeah.
The Lord
So
God made all kinds of tree grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life. Of course, it's two of them. Overthinking it. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Right, okay.
Yeah. So that's right in the beginning of the Bible, isn't it? And that tree of life is referring to the Kabbalah tree of life. And obviously you can see over here, that's our representation. It's an earthly element, isn't it? The tree is an earthly element. And what we've got in this tree here are two cubes that are hidden away inside there, which will become more apparent in a moment, in the next couple of slides.
Right.
But we've got 10 points on here, haven't we? There's 11 on this one. Yeah, there's 10 on this one, 11 with that one there. So we've got 10 points.
Yep.
Again, that is corresponding with our 10 numbers from 0 to 9. Okay, because that's how many there are from 0 to 9. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is these 10 circles. That one in there is the 11th one, and it's called Darth, as in Darth Vader. Yeah.
Well, spelled the same as well, is it?
It's spelled the same, D-A-A-T-H.
Amazing.
Yeah. And it means knowledge. So basically, Darth Vader in Jewish terms meant the father of knowledge, or the knowledge father.
Yeah, his father, yeah.
So up here, we've got the top of the tree. This is the Kita, or it's also known as the Ketha, and that's also known as the crown. So this is what's in charge of this tree, is this crown element here. If you want to know what the crown is, go and have a look at all your documents for your children, or any information you've got from the government or the state, and you'll see everything is stamped with crown properties or crown rights at the bottom. That's in honor of this aspect here.
Well, you think the Queen's crown is related to this?
Yeah, definitely. Well, she's mentioned in the Bible, isn't she? All of the kings were mentioned in the Bible, so they're all linked to the dedications of the gods in the Bible. So yeah, I mean, it was you that was telling me about James's
dedication. Yeah,
his dedication and the things that were said. And somebody else was mentioning to me today, it's come out recently that James was a homosexual that had affairs with his mother.
His mother?
Yeah, allegedly. No, you might have to edit that one out, Ross. It might be too controversial. But anyway, we've got these 10 elements, and the two cubes in this tree represent earthly elements, as I'll show in a moment. And interestingly, the tree of life, you've got the tree, that's the earthly element, it's in the earth, and these are made out of matter. Yeah, behind it is the sky, but we're looking at the tree itself. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, two cubes in the Kabbalah tree of life. Can you see the cubes, Ross, on this one? So we've got a hexagon.
Oh yeah, it's kind of coming out. Yes, it's like a flattened version of a cube, I suppose, is it? Or
yeah, they're kind of overlapping as well. It's a bit of
I can see the black cube now. That stands out. Yes, yeah. I can start to see it now. Yes.
Yeah, it's a three-dimensional. So this is where we get the wagon wheel from.
It's a see-through cube. That's the word, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah. It's a see-through. It's a transparent cube where this one is actually sitting on top of this one. They're stacked basically. And from this angle, we can see where we get the 10 points. Okay, the 10 points, and obviously that's our 10 symbols for our numbers. 0 to 9, whichever way you want to look at it.
Amazing. I don't know how to think of all this.
And here we go. So I was referring to the cube as being a reference to the earth. And here we go. With regards to the Platonic solids. So if we think back to the first couple of slides where I showed you the Yahweh Ether, which was the twin reciprocated vortex of the masculine and the feminine principle. This is that aspect there. So we're going to be having two of these. This is going to be the outline of what our universe actually looks like. And there is actually an article somewhere on the internet which I'll dig out and I'll bring up on another presentation, where they actually believe that the shape of the universe is a dodecahedron.
Wow. Okay.
So that would make perfect sense, because that represents the ether. Okay, so this represents the prime parent mind, and this is obviously a twin as well. So this is one of two. So this is going to be joined to another one up here. And when we were looking at the divine feminine, we were looking at the top one, remember? And then the bottom one.
The stars, yeah? Is that the stars?
Yeah. You what, sorry?
The stars.
The stars, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So do you recognize this symbol?
The pentagon.
Yeah.
Pentagon,
apart from it
pentagram.
being all military stuff.
Oh yeah. It's the bishop's hat, isn't it? The Pope's hat.
Yeah, the Pope's mitre.
A mitre, that's the word. Yes.
It's the Pope's mitre. So if we are looking at the divine feminine, then we've got a good idea who the Catholics are supporting. Yeah. So that's the Great Mother. That's who their church is, isn't it? It's the Divine Mother of Mary. So they are worshipping the divine feminine of the Yahweh Ether. Okay, that's important. The Yahweh Ether aspect is different to this Yahweh down here. It's only different in regards of it being a different level of energy. It's the same thing because it's coming down through manifestations and just manifesting on different levels as different shapes. Okay, but this is the earthly element that I was talking about. So this thing is going on inside of this. Okay.
So the yellow one, the dodecahedron, covers everything.
Yeah, this is the universe. So if you can imagine everything, this is the universal mind, or one half of the universal mind. And everything that's going on is going on inside of here. So this shape will fit inside of here. And there's actually a graphic where you can stack all of these together, because they do all fit together, because that is the nature of sacred geometry. Okay. Wow. They all fit into this, all fit into one another, but these have been broken down separately to show them. Okay. So with the earth aspect, we can see the 4 points, which is the square. Yeah. That's the mortarboard, which you wear on your head when you graduate from university. This represents solidity. So this represents the manifestation. So this would be at the bottom of the tree of life, if you like, because this is the manifestation. And interestingly, the God that is associated with creating the reality in which we function created a heaven out of matter and an earth out of matter, which would be those two cubes that we were looking at. That's part of the Gnostic Gospels that I've listed on the front of the presentation. So if you want to go and read about that, you can. Again, I don't want to waste too much time going into those soils, because they take up hours and hours themselves.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, sorry, just curious. The other three are all triangles, aren't they? Although they look very different, they're all based on the same triangle diagrams you've got.
Yeah, and looking at them from different angles as well, you can see the hexagram as well. You know, the six sides.
Oh, yes. Very good.
Yeah, and this is where we'll end up with the Star of David within this. And, you know, that's obviously a 6-pointed one, whereas the 5 one up here is a 5-pointed one. But when you add the 6 and the 5 together, you get 11. and that is crucial in piecing together the puzzles, because that 1 and 1 are actually the first 2 digits of the Fibonacci sequence, as we'll see in a moment. So the numbers always add up, they're always in sync with one another, and it's these two that are working together to create everything that we visualize and sense. Go on, mate, have you got a question?
Well, I was just observing that both the air, earth, and water are all hexagons, aren't they? All three.
Yeah, from that particular angle.
From that
Yeah,
angle, yeah. I realise they're different three-dimensional, whatever objects.
So it's all a matter of perspective, then, isn't it, as well? So, so with the square, that's obviously the 2-dimensional representation, and the cube is obviously the 3-dimensional representation. Okay. So interestingly, the tree of life is all centered around the number 10. Our base 10 is centered around the number 10. And the patriarchs before and after the flood number in their 10s.
Very convenient.
So, yeah, we could say, couldn't we, really, that this would be the first number system, the first of the numbers coming through. And then when we get to Noah, although Noah is the 10th one, if we take that away, he's actually the first one in the next sequence.
He's both sides of the flood, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he's both sides of the flood, which is interesting, because if he's a 1, then what we get is 1, 1, 2, 3, which is the first 4 digits of the Fibonacci sequence as well. So yeah, he's the crossover period, and he's often associated with Janus as well, the Roman god Janus.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is why he's looking into the future and looking into the past at the same time as well. But I wanted to show this one because it corresponding with the numbers and the tree of life, I think, is crucial.
To them, sorry, you mentioned. Oh, sorry, just a quick question on the last graph.
Yeah, go on. Do you want me to go
Well,
back?
you've mentioned, not so well, maybe you've mentioned, you pointed out all their ages and years after death. Do you think that comes into it at any point?
Probably. I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't gone in and looked at the numerology and the synchronicities with these numbers, because it would take me quite a while, and they're probably there. I mean, for example, Lamech, the 3 7s with Lamech, I mean, that stands out straight away when I look at that. But if I start going into that, Ross, I'll be here for another 10 hours.
Yeah, it's okay. That's why I just wondered if you had that, so I just don't want to miss it. Right, okay, here's our cube. You can see our cube very clearly now, yes, because you haven't got the back lines in it, yes.
Yeah, so this is the tree of life, and this has got the 2 cubes in it. So when you go and read about Yaldabaoth, this Gnostic demiurge creating a heaven out of matter, well, that's got to be reference to the cube, isn't it? Because that represents Earth, and Earth represents solid matter or solidity. So we're looking at a heaven made out of matter. So that's going to be reference to this upper half of the cube, the heavenly cube of the tree of life. And then he obviously made a footstool as well. You heard that one. He made a heaven for himself, and he made a footstool for himself. Well, the footstool will be the second part of the cube. So this top half of the cube is Yahweh Jehovah. And there we've got the Star of David, and you can see inside of it, look, you've got the cube.
Yeah, the hexagons there, isn't it? Yeah.
The hexagons inside of it, yeah. Okay. So it encodes it itself. So this is encoding the male and the female. So going up is the male and coming down is the female. And that's basically being represented in these 2 cubes as well.
Wow.
Okay. So Yahweh Jehovah, there he is, or she, however you want to term it.
So just the name of the God of Israel. Sorry, just clarify now. We're not talking about the all-high God who created everything.
This isn't the prime parent. No, this isn't the prime parent. This isn't the divine feminine Yahweh. This is her creation Yahweh. So it's her, but it's her creation. So when we look to that 9 and that 6, where that 6 falls down, this is all part of this realm. Okay, right. So we're coming down to the 6th heaven. You know, whereas the Divine Mother, she exists in the 9th heaven. Her son exists in the 6th heaven. And this is what this is associated with. So we've got the proper name of God, Yahweh. And over here on the right, these verses, so these red italic verses, are where you'll find this definition of Yahweh. So they actually bunch
that the
words
Lord
together.
is just Yahweh. That the Lord, not just Lord. That the
Yeah,
Lord.
that the Lord is equal to Yahweh in that particular verse. Yeah. So Genesis 2.4, those 3 words referenced, you know, this Yahweh God.
That's weird. I just was shoved an extra couple of words in.
Yeah. There's a few more like that as well, which we'll be covering in a moment. So
Right, okay.
you know, make of it what you will.
That's just weird. If you translate Yahweh to Lord, I can see the logic of that. But translating Yahweh to that the Lord.
Yeah, then the Lord or that Lord.
For the Lord. I suppose it's making it read easier, perhaps. But there we are. We'll see more in a minute.
Yeah. So anyway, with this Yahweh, if you scroll down this page, I can't do it now, obviously, because there's a screenshot. But if you scroll down to the Strong's definition or the Strong's Concordance definition, you get this word. So this comes out of Yahweh 3068, which was the previous slide, and we get this higher, or this aya, as it's pronounced, or oya, as it's pronounced actually.
Oh, I like
there.
the traditional Welsh greeting of hiya, you know, I guess good.
Yeah.
That's what we say in Wales, isn't it? Hiya, Pat, how's it going?
Yeah, hiya, buddy. So this means to fall out or come to pass or to become. And taking that back to the yin and yang symbol again, you can see how that can be translated to fall, you know, how the 6 fell out of the 9. You know, the 6 falls down 180 degrees. Sorry, the 9 falls down 180 degrees to become the 6. It shows it up here, look quite nicely.
Yeah, that's a good. So it's got the 9 and the 6 on the name as well, isn't it?
Yeah, marvelous. Yeah, and that's basically the fall. And if we look over here on these verses as well, we can see how this lower deity is actually connected to the earthly as well as the heavenly aspect as well. And that's quite right as well, because H1961 Aya comes out of H3068 Yahweh. They're both the same thing, okay, just on different levels. So over here you've got, and the earth was. So this word was is referring to this God.
Well, the word was,
yeah.
Well,
so
basically, you can't just translate the word. You've got to put the name of the God in, surely.
Well, that's basically what it's trying to say. And I think probably this has got a lot to do with the way that Hebrew was probably written and the difficulties with using, you know, the fact they didn't have any vowels and stuff. So basically that sentence for me is saying, and the earth was higher, basically. The earth was higher, because they're taking that and matching it with that. Or if you're going to read it in its proper way,
yeah, or with commas.
In the earth higher, wasn't it, without form?
Yeah, with commas, and the earth higher, comma, was, you know, sorry, the earth higher without form. You know, just the commas needed. Yeah,
and the same thing with Genesis 1:3. You know, God said, "Let there be light." Well, "let there be light" is reference to Aya, so it's basically saying God said, "Aya light." Aya light. Yeah.
Well, they've shuffled those words "let there be" in there.
Yeah, a bit like the Beatles, "Let it be."
Well, it's a bit cheeky taking a name, but just a complete side thing. It might not mean anything, but you start to notice things. The 1961, of course, you can rotate that, and it still says 1961, isn't it? One of those palindromic numbers. I love palindromic things.
Yeah.
If you rotate it, it's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's
the ones read upside down as well, not these funny ones. They can just do a little stick, you know.
It's the same number, it's just a different perspective. It's 180-degree perspective, and that's what a mirror does, isn't it? So when you look at your reflection in a mirror, it looks like a perfect reflection, doesn't it? But if you hold up your right hand, your reflection's holding up its left hand. You know, there's that 180-degree switch, and that all comes about because of this division. But anyway, these are the words and verses. It's just some of them. This is just a little snippet. There's like dozens and dozens of verses throughout the Bible where you have these combination of quite innocent words which you would read, and you've got no idea that it's talking about a deity, that it's actually talking about Yahweh Earth element. For me, it's very, very sneaky. It's a very sneaky.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, you're taking a name and you're just putting in let there be or was or something, and you're just completely hiding the name, aren't you?
Yeah, completely.
Disingenuous at the best. Curious as
so
to
that's what that represents, yeah.
Hmm.
That higher aspect. So we've got Yahweh higher. So this is the lower cube. So this triangle going up would be the Yahweh Jehovah, which is the higher cube. And then we've got this cube, this triangle going downwards, which represents the feminized male, the female, which represents the Yahweh, so the earthy aspect of his creation. That's the heavenly aspect, that's the earthly aspect. Does that make sense?
Yep, there's our cube. Yep. Well, it's two
Okay.
cubes, isn't it? So it's two cubes stacked.
So basically, this is what it's showing. This is what the cube is telling us. And these are the XYZ axes that we use to define our reality, aren't they? Our three-dimensional reality. So are we existing inside a cube? Is our heavens inside a cube, and is our earth inside a cube? Bearing in mind that our X, Y, and Z axes are literally, we're just taking from one corner of a cube. They're leaving out the rest of it for us. What they're not telling us, look, from this axis here, is that we're inside a box.
What a lovely thought, yeah.
Well, that's my interpretation of it as well.
Particularly when you got the mesh over the box like that, it looks like a cage then, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're inside of a cage, and where's that expression coming from? You've got to think outside of the box.
Yes.
And if you've got a sphere inside of this box, then you're basically squaring a circle.
Yes, I see what you mean. Yes.
And this is what I think is all underlying. This is what it means. The cube is obviously the earthly aspect, and it's bringing structure and solidity, and there seems to be a three-dimensional structure and solidity to that as well. So we're moving away from the ether aspect, which is this indivisible and invisible energy that we can't see, the spiritual world, into this solid stuff that we can see and feel, and is actually a tangible reality. And there's hopefully I am thinking outside of the box, which is what everybody else has got to do as well. So on to the time aspect of this presentation now. So we've gone through all of the energy side of it. So this symbol, again, going back, is the prime parent, the divine feminine, and the divine masculine, the universal.
So just to clarify on that again, it's not male and female, it's masculine and feminine aspects, isn't it?
Yeah, masculine and feminine. The male and female, I mean, perhaps people that are going to watch this have got other ideas and got other views and other feedback from this, but as I explained with that the yin yang symbol, the 9 and the 6 symbol symbolically representing that fall, you've got two aspects, two things that are basically the same but just slipping over, and that's an important thing to remember as well, because the same thing is going on up here, but it's a different type of energy, and that's why this is associated with the ether or the ether, and what we're associating with Yahweh. What was it? What was the last slide, Ross?
Solid earth, the square.
The solid earth aspect. So that heavenly aspect and that earthly aspect are two different energies. But where the time actually starts is with this, is with the mother and the father, the universe. So they say that time started with a big bang, and this is I'm kind of saying, well, this is the sacred geometrical version of that big bang, if you like, because each one of these lines encodes the Fibonacci sequence. which are these numbers here. So as you can see, we've got this starts at 0 at the center point because it's the 0 point energy at the very middle of the two spheres. The first number out is a number 1 there. Second number out is another number 1, and then it's a number 2, then it's a number 3, and then it's a number 5. So they would be the first 5.
Can I just show to people, if they were not familiar with the Fibonacci series, that what Luke's showing here is that Fibonacci took the previous two numbers, add them together to create the next number. So each number is the sum of the two numbers before it. So if you look on that list, the 2 is the 1 and the 1 added together. And the next, you get the 1, add the 2, you got a 3. So the next two numbers in the series are now a 2 and a 3. Add those together, you get a 5. 3 add 5 is 8. So that's all it is. You keep adding the prior two numbers. That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. And these numbers are really important because what they have an association with the golden ratio and the golden spiral. And you find that everywhere in nature. And particularly the golden ratio, that's 1.618. That ratio, and it's a very famous ratio that one of the things most people learn in maths.
Yeah, and you find it on the Fibonacci series. No, I hadn't realized that before. Yeah, interesting.
You do. So if you take 89 and divide 55, 89 by 55, you get the perfect 1.618 golden ratio.
Amazing.
in that aspect there. Okay. In the previous ones, what you get is when you divide 2 by 3, or sorry, 3 by 2, and then 5 by 3, and then 8 by 3, and then 13 by 8, and 21 by 13, you get this gradual progression as it goes closer and closer to the golden ratio. So I'd encourage anybody that has got a calculator in front of them to do that, because the golden ratio is hidden in these numbers, encoded in these numbers, which means it's encoded into this diagram as well. This representation is pentad, this 5-point star, which is the Pope's mitre at the center of the vortex, which is why he wears that on top of his head. So he becomes a representation of this Baphomet feminine divinity. Okay.
You never think that when you look at his hat, do you? It's just bonkers.
Yeah, you do. Well, you don't see the horns.
Yeah, why has he got?
You don't see the horns, do you? You just see the pentad on his head.
Oh, I see. So he should have his mitre with 2 horns sticking off the flat parts, right? Okay.
Yeah, he should have the horns up here as well.
There's a thought, isn't it? There's a thought.
So yeah. Anyway, getting back to this Fibonacci sequence, when we use that digital routing, remember I showed you in the first couple of slides where all the numbers reduced down to their basic numbers.
Yeah. So 12 would be the 1 digit and the 2 digit added together, you get 3. So 12 would be 3, right? Okay, yeah, okay.
So this bunch of numbers here, these first 12 digits here, represent these numbers here in red.
So 1, 4, 4, 1 add 4 is 9. That's where the 9 comes in, right? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's that 144 again, that fundamental number, both in the angles of the pentagram and in the Bible as well. So you've got 12 digits. We have 12 hours in a day and we have 12 hours in a night. So look at all that. Remember I said about the numbers going into increasing complexity, but they always reduce down to one of 9 numbers. Doesn't matter how complex they get, they always can add up to these 1 of 9. So within the Fibonacci 24-digit code, we have this repeating number sequence. So this number goes on for infinity, but it just underneath, like our base 10 number system, goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The Fibonacci sequence does exactly the same, but with this sequence instead.
So what do you mean, the whole 24 would repeat if we went up to the next number?
Yeah. So I could
right, okay.
I can copy and paste these, and they just repeat, so next to each other, repeat. Yeah.
So I would know the next number, 28,000 whatever plus 46,000 whatever. So
it's going to be a 1.
75,000. When I add it all up, that'll come to a 1.
It'll come to this first red one, yeah.
Well, that's something I'll be trying. I'll be giving that a go when we come off.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
That's mad, that is. If the numbers repeat like that, that is really mad.
Yeah, and this isn't the only repeating code in the Fibonacci sequence. There's another repeating code as well, which I'm going to show you now.
Okay, yeah. Then you come back to.
Well, you've got a question.
Well, I just wonder if this 24 digits is going to be significant, but I guess that'll come later. So,
yeah, well, the 24 digits are significant because we've got 12 hours in a day and we've got 12 hours in a night. So they're to deal with time, aren't they? Because we've got 24 hours in a day. And this is where this element here, this universal mind, is the beginner of time. You know, and time would have started with the Big Bang. So this is what I'm saying is this is the representation, the pentagram representation of the beginning of time. And it actually follows the Fibonacci sequence, which is the golden ratio, which is what you'll find in all of creation. You know, so it's no coincidence.
Yeah, it's the angle of the petals kind of thing, isn't it?
That's the golden angle, that is.
All
That's
right,
not the
so
golden ratio.
Because what do you mean then? Could you give me an example, perhaps?
So the golden spiral, the golden ratio is 1.618. So it's the difference that you're going to find. So if you were to look at like the spirals in nature, like the hurricanes and the tornadoes and stuff, or is it the Nautilus shell? There's certain shells that have got the spiral.
Yep.
You've got the spirals in nature. That's what it represents, basically. And within, like I said, within these numbers, it's sticking to this ratio. You know, it's fixed, which is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, because I know in architecture they use the 2-3-5, don't they? The third, fourth, and fifth for buildings and things. That's the kind of ratio of the walls and stuff like that. Yeah.
There you go. I didn't know
3-5-8 is another one they use. You see it a lot in classical Greek stuff.
Interesting. So this gets a little bit closer to now how it's associated with time. So these number sequences is the Fibonacci sequence getting more and more complex. Okay. And you'll note every 5 steps, there's either a 5 or a 0 being dropped on the numbers at the very end. This creates a second code, and this code there can be seen over here. Look, so that's 0, 5, 5, 0, 5, 5, 0, 5, 5, 0, and that goes on infinitely as well. And the importance of that code will become apparent in a minute, because it's just when I found it, it blew my mind. But yeah, as you can see, it doesn't matter how complex these Fibonacci numbers get as they go up in your order. Each one of these numbers will go down to a particular single number.
Yeah. Add up all the digits, and that's the root number. Yeah.
And then this creates the time code at the back as well, or in the background.
That's bonkers.
And that's excuse me, that's an example of how the Fibonacci time codes, the repeating 24 digits and the repeating 60-digit time codes, fit over the top of a clock. So those 0 and 5 markers that we saw every 5 points mark out the numbers on a clock, which are spaced in 5 intervals. Yeah,
they're marking out the hours. Yeah,
they're marking out the hours, but they're also on the 5-minute markers as well, aren't they?
Yes, on the 5-minute markers. Yes.
Yeah, so it's hours and 5-minute markers, which is why they're 5s, I think. Maybe, who knows? But you'll notice that the main points, the 4 cardinal points, are covered by the 0s.
Yes, they are, aren't they? And then the 5s and the other 2.
Yeah.
Or the other 8. Yeah.
And the 5s. So yeah, this 60-digit. So this is on the outside circle. This is the Fibonacci sequence. Okay. And there are 2.5 Fibonacci sequences on this first 12-hour clock. And then there's another 2.5 Fibonacci sequences that run around the outside to make it a total of 5 Fibonacci sequences. So we go back to the 5s again. Okay, syncing with these 5s. So you understand that, yeah, there's the 5 24-digit codes all the way around this 24-hour clock. Oops. Okay. And then in the background, there's the 60-digit repeating code. So every 60 digits, this 0505 code repeats itself every 60 digits. Well, that's our time, 60 seconds in a minute,
That's amazing.
60 minutes in an hour. And it's all encoded through the Fibonacci sequence. And that, as I showed, come from that universal mother and father principle, the prime parent, the Yahweh Ether aspect, the number 9. This is all going on inside the feminine mind. The masculine is just sitting back and energizing it. So the masculine aspect would be the Apsu from the Enumera-Elish tale, from Babylon, their creation epic.
Wow.
So you can see the numbers here, yeah? Does that all make
Yeah.
sense? So the outside one is the Fibonacci codes, all broken down into their digital roots. So they've all been added up to...
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I'm just wondering if the actual sequence of numbers is seen anywhere, or if it's... Does that appear somewhere, or is it significant? I mean, I realize it is the sequence.
Well, the Fibonacci sequence. I mean, it's the golden ratio. Go and have a look at the golden ratio, golden spiral, and have a look for examples of it found in nature. It's everywhere, Ross. So
Yeah.
It's all part of the.
So what can I just mention? You put the months on the far right. What's that about?
Yeah, basically, I was just playing around with how the months could work out to be crossing over the equinoxes, because this middle point is the equinox of the numbers, which runs right through the witching hour, by the way, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Sorry, the witch.
The witching hour.
All right, right, okay.
Yeah, that old wives' tale thing. You hear 3 o'clock in the morning and all the witches come out.
Oh, that's the witching hour, is it? Okay. All right. I've heard of
Yeah, I
witching.
think it's
know,
right, although I'll probably be told that's wrong. Someone will come up and say, oh, no, that's not right.
Oh, no, yeah, it's all positive
Go away.
Yeah.
So basically I've got March in the middle now. If you remember back in the old calendar times, before the Gregorian calendar, I think it was, it used to start in March, didn't it, the year?
So I understand, yes.
Yeah, it used to be the 1st March. So I've started it from the equinox, which is January, February, March, and then it crosses over to February. No, it's not February, March, April, May, June. So that would then be not an equinox. What's the opposite to the equinox?
Solstice.
Solstice. Yeah, represent part of the solstice.
Well, that'd be the low point. That'd be the winter solstice then, wouldn't it? That would be middle of December or something.
Well, this side of it, yeah, because there's 2 sides of the clock. So this side represents the light side because it's the lower numbers, obviously going up to 12 midday.
Yeah, but I've noticed the numbers, you sequence it. It starts off on the, I don't know if you can see my cursor. I'm not sure you can see it, but it starts off the 1, 2, 3s on the left-hand clock, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then it goes into the right-hand clock. So it kind of does this sort of, it does that shape, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a figure of 8. It's the infinity loop. So, and this is where we get the continual time spiral, because it just goes on and on and on and on, because it is one big loop. But yeah, this 24-hour point here, this is midnight. So this would be 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3, 4, 5, and then it's dawn. Sunlight coming out, midday, going right the way down to the evening. Then crossing midpoint of the day, which would be 1500 hours, then to 16 to 17 to 18, so 9 o'clock in the evening back to midnight, and that's what it represents. And it fits perfectly with all of the numbers. I mean that 60-digit repeating Fibonacci sequence, Ross, just places over the clock.
That's beautiful, wasn't it? It also makes me wonder, it's the that passage in the times also kind of reflects the relative position of the sun in the sky as well, doesn't it, if you think about it?
Yeah, everything's relative, and it's all about perspective as well. I can't stress that enough with perspective. Everybody, I've got a presentation as well, which I'll do later on, about how motion is basically perceived. We've got 6 different motions that we can perceive. Now, if we are in a cube-like structure within our cosmos, so I'm saying that the universe is a dodecahedron shape, and I think there's a science article out there somewhere, if you Google it, where there's some scientists that agree with that. So if the universe is a dodecahedron, I'm probably going to be saying that our cosmos level, down where we are, is probably within inside that cube, or within that cube structure.
Right.
And if we're going to be
the massive universe, and we're a cube within that. something
Yeah,
like that.
and that's where you'd be fitting all of those geometrical shapes together to create that sacred geometry. There's I can't remember what the name of it is, because there's an actual word for it now where they all fit together and they become one thing. And again, that goes back to the principle of that then becoming symbolic of the one, when each one of those elements separate from one another. That's where we get that division of the mind, and we have this conflict then, because we've got two things, or we think that are two things, when actually it's one thing that's been divided. And we're having this conflict with one another, not with each other, and we're having this conflict with ourselves, because that's basically what the ego is, isn't it? And if we look at this principle of, if we're going to believe in this idea that what's going on above is the same as what's going on below, as above so below, if we as human beings can have this split brain and this left and right brain, then surely the mind that is above us is going to be working on the same as above so below principles. And I think that's what this, even in this diagram here, it shows, if I was to take this side of the circle and fold it backwards around the back of this, you would have one coin with daytime on one side and nighttime on the other. Or nighttime, whichever way you wanted to look at it. And the crossover point between the two would be the equinox, the middle point. So yeah, that's
if you notice with the inner circles, the two inner circles of numbers, they are actually they parallel each other. They're mirrors of each other.
Yeah, they are. Well, because they're 2/6. They're repeating. So there's 160.
Yeah.
Repeating pattern in there, and there's 160 repeating pattern in there.
Yeah. If you count up from the 3, it goes 19275. And if you count up from the 15, it goes 19275.
Yeah, and if you look from the outside here, so from the beginning, it starts at 0990. Well, we know that the 0 and the 9 are divine partners. That's the masculine and that's the divine feminine.
And there they are together.
And there they are together, yeah. The split personalities dividing the masculines as well. So we have this first line out here is the first Fibonacci sequence, and it goes right the way up to here.
That's the first 24, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, that's the first 24. It takes us to 8. And again, 8 is symbolic of the octave, isn't it? So we then jump into the octave. So all of the numbers correspond subtly, and it is so beautiful the way that they do. And then obviously we come into the second Fibonacci sequence, which goes right the way around to here. And then we get half of a 1 there. But that half goes this side, and then the other half comes on the inside here, and then finishes around here. Sorry, around here. It starts here again. Yeah, so that's that half there, and then that's half there.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that was
some clever
stuff,
isn't it?
For me. And this is what I mean by revelations. It's there's some real mental gymnastics that are going on, and it's food for thought. And I'm open to ideas as well for people to come in and say, well, you thought about it like this, or you thought about it like that. But it does show this split division and this twin perspective, because if we didn't have a split mind, then we wouldn't be able to determine these two to be different, would we? In my view. So there we are.
Right. Go on, give us a taste of the next one. Just give us a little tease about the next one. Just a tease. Go on, just a tease about the gods of the Bible.
So the first one, let's have a look.
Then I'm going to show the slides. Just tell us what it's about. That's all.
Okay, so what we're going to do...
Don't show the slides. Keep the slides. That's cool. Yeah, keep the slides.
Okay, so now we've covered... the reason I wanted to do that presentation was because from the last videos that we did, I went back and read all of the comments, and there was lots of comments about how the hierarchy worked. How did it work? Where was it all coming from? How did the various gods fit in with one another?
Yes.
And what I needed to show, I felt, for us to be able to now go into this element, or this part 2 element of gods of the Bible aspect, is to actually show where these gods come from, and who's creating them and who's supporting them. Because believe it or not, the divine feminine supports some, but she doesn't support others. And then you have the Yahweh, the Lord Earth aspect supports some gods, but doesn't support others. And this is where we go into the conflicts that we see in the old Greek myths, where you had Zeus supporting the Trojans and not supporting the Greeks. A similar kind of thing, and it's you see that throughout all of the myths. So hopefully, with that first presentation now that I've shown, people can go back and obviously get their heads around how those upper gods, because there is two gods that I've just spoken about today. One is a much higher Yahweh, and the other Yahweh is obviously to do with her emanation and her son. And those two then become responsible for everything that goes on in this holy book. And the next part 2 will basically show how these gods are basically the descendants of the Sethites and the Cainites, and how the Cainites then crossed over into the flood, and this, the original Sethites crossed over as well. So all is not what it seems. Again,
yes,
there's going to be lots more
I've had a little glimpse
revelations.
that you've done a nice schematic showing how all the gods relate to each other, and
yeah, there's going to be more diagrams in how that hierarchy is structured. So again, it'll be a bit of a refresher as well to see what we've learned today, or what I've talked about today. So we can take it from there.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in. It's mind-blowing. It's really mind-blowing. I know you say about 12 years working on this stuff, isn't it? It's it's a big, I don't know. I got to ask you, I should have asked this at the beginning of the series, really, but just quickly, what got you into looking at this in the first place? Can I ask that? Or
I don't know. It was almost because I'm not a religious person, I'm not a Christian. Although I was Christian when I was a boy, so I should say I am a Christian, but I didn't have any choice in the matter. But yeah, I've never gone through my life being a religious person. I never kind of really followed anything. I've always been big into my history. Loved history, but the religious side, I don't know. It's just something. I can't explain it, Ross, and I'd be a bit of an idiot if I did try to explain it. It just happened. That's all I can say.
I think that's a great answer. You had your own revelation suddenly.
That's a really good way of putting it. Actually, it's a personal revelation, and this again, what I would like to point out is this is just my perspective of it. People may well look at everything that I've shown tonight and go, "Well, actually, I'm seeing it from this point of view." And what I would like to stress is that we are all going to end up at the same destination. I firmly believe that. We're all just on a different path, and whether that path goes left or right and windy up and down or whatever underground, we will all end up at the same destination. We're just coming at it from a different scenic route. And sometimes our routes harmonize and sometimes they don't. But I think even when we appear to be going in opposite directions, ultimately we will end up at the true source, which is the one. We will no longer have a split personality or a split mind, because that is the issue for me. It's the ego that's happening at a cosmic level, a universal level. There's a split personality, there's a split ego, and as above, so below. Being the children of God, we're a bit mental too.
Very nicely put. I'm very glad I asked now. Excellent. Well, thank you very much indeed, Luke. I think that's absolutely fascinating. And we're already getting stacks of feedback on the other ones, and onwards and upwards. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next ones now. I know there's a few to come, and I have had a couple of sneaky peeks, and there's some amazing stuff. So stay with us, and thank you for going and sharing all this wonderful stuff with us, Luke. It really is appreciated.
Yeah, we do get to Wales, by the way. We do get to the history.
Oh yeah, that's right. The other thing we are going to come into migration.
All this actually ties in eventually with the migrations.
Yeah, we are going to talk about who everyone was in the migrations.
But at least you'll know who the people were in the migrations, and it will be a big eye opener for people.
Yes,
because you'll have the background there of who the actual people are and how they're related to the different gods, which I think is fascinating in its own way. Anyway, yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much. Until the next
what do I
time.
do now? Do I just leave?
Yeah, just leave. Go. I'll just end the meeting. There we go.
I'll stop my share.
That's it. Yeah, thank you, Luke, for a fantastic presentation. Thank you for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. There's lots more from Luke coming up. So remember to subscribe, get notifications, you'll know when they come along. There's also a live show on this channel every Sunday evening, 8 o'clock. That's the big one. We have a chat about the latest news, what's happening in the world of history, what's being hidden from us at the moment. There's stories every week. And then we go through different topics. And as you see on these pictures, we explore the ancient stones, we go around the country. There are megalithic walls in Britain being taken down by councils at the moment. What's all that about? Did you know that the Welsh language can be traced all the way back to ancient Assyria and read hieroglyphs for you? All this is on the channel, there's stuff going up all the time, it's always growing. And it's important because also a lot of these sites are being destroyed and disappearing in front of our very eyes. So at the moment they're not yet deleted, it's just hidden history. That's not going to be always the case. Let's make sure we record as much as possible for next generation and ourselves. Next time, everywhere.